Welcome. Hi.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing good, hanging in there.
Well, great. Well, you guys had, Paolo, you guys had a big breakout year last year. You were, one of the most recognized products. You won lots of awards. Can you tell our audience here a little bit about, what is Embodied, what is Moxie, and how did you get to this point? And then after that, Dmitry, I'll ask you the same question.
Well, actually, I'll start by saying the way we got to this point is by having people that are visionary like Dmitry, who is the first person that over a teleconference call, I told him about this story, about what we want to do with our company. And he said, it sounds crazy, but I'm in. So having vision on day one to join, help us build a company that is focused on transforming people's lives and having impact on it. And Moxie is our first product, which is a companion robot for children, focused on helping with social emotional development. So it's using conversational AI, machine vision, and a bunch of technologies packaged in a companion robot that can have conversations with you, eye contact, body language, and then work on a bunch of activities that are helping promote social, emotional, and cognitive skills.
I heard that when you were thinking about Moxie, one of the first things you said is it's like, how do I make, a true friend for children and an ally for parents? So I just, we'll talk about it in a second, but when I talk about your product, I bring it up because I think that you completely nailed, three of the most important things around that. And so let me go to Dmitry. So Dmitry, what made you say yes? Like, what did you see?
I think it was simple. It's like, I think Paolo background, Paolo vision, it's so complementary. And I really, thinking in terms of like where we're right now, I remember the childhood, I was thinking about like stories which my parent told me, or like some kind of stories which I remember from cartoons or movies. I think next generation of children will remember stories of their robots they told, right? So I think it's really amazing when you have like children companion who can interact, who can build the stories together, can build memories together.
And what were so Paolo? So the things that I love about it is I love how Moxie sends children on missions. I love how you took some of the things that are really important to me is that this technology should never, like transformative technology, wellbeing technology, it should never replace our human skills. And what I loved when I found you, and through also Craig, who's been in the community for a while, is that, one, you were working on a really hard problem around social emotional development that didn't have any great solutions. Two, you weren't making the technology the permanent point of mediation. You send the children out to humans. You took the security, really, you paid a lot of attention to that. And so could you talk a little bit about, what you were trying to, accomplish and how you think about those things?
Yeah, I mean, I will start by saying this was a moonshot because it has so many complexities in technology, security, parent app that allows them to have an insight into the child's development, cloud infrastructure, and all the latest and greatest state-of-the-art in AI and machine learning technologies. But also, it was a super important responsibility we were taking on, and we wanted to be very careful in being good shepherds of what we are trying to accomplish, because it's not about the technology, it's about the child and the child development. So to quote Craig Allen, who you mentioned and who's our chief creative officer, Moxie is not the destination. Moxie is a springboard to real life. So as part of the way we have developed the content activities and the programming that Moxie will engage with every single day, Moxie has content to engage with your child. What it does is it teaches you a couple of techniques, like how do you manage your emotions, how do you deal with making mistakes, how do you pay compliments to other people, and why do you do that, and so on. and in a fun and playful way. But then it gives you a daily mission, which is going into the real world and performing these acts of kindness and so on that you have learned, to exercise your skills that you have learned in the real world, because that's where it counts. Moxie, at the end of the day, is like a tool. If I break my ankle in playing basketball, which I have done several times, unfortunately, you get a cast, you get a crutch, and so on. It's a tool. It's not to replace my leg, obviously. Same way with Moxie, it's a tool to help provide a little bit of a helping hand to care providers and families to help enhance and supplement their child's development. It's obviously not meant to be a replacement. I think that would be the wrong mission if someone wanted to go do that.
Yeah, I love, so Vivian Ming, who, is someone that I admire a great deal. She has a principle that she calls better without. And so this idea that these technologies should not become crutches for us long-term, but should allow us to really, unlock our, inherent capacity, which I actually don't think humans, I don't think that we're anywhere, near that yet. And so one of the other things that's exciting about what you're doing is that, now that many people are starting to, really explore the role of emotion and even the development of intelligence, having a way for people to develop this that, can be a floor, can be a platform, that allows for some, consistency of access, is really essential. And so one of the other things I thought you might talk a little bit about is, on your website and in some of your interviews, you've talked about how this is just the very first thing, that what you're really working on is, a way to open up these types of skills for people. Could you, tell us a little bit about what happens after Moxie?
Oh, well, it's a very good question. I think there are many opportunities. I mean, this is literally version 1.0, or you could even call it version 0.5, which is taking us 5 years to get to where we are. As we are a startup, we have, for instance, to mention some numbers, we have to date raised about $45 million. We have spent slightly more than half of it. By the time we launch the product and start scaling it, we would have spent the $50 million, which is a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of effort that would go into this. So if I was at iRobot, the nth, 15th generation Roomba costs at least 4 times more than that to get to market, right? And this is a whole new category of product. So this is version 1.0. Once we launch it, hopefully successfully, and start scaling it, this will give us access to more money. And if we had real budget, right, it's unlimited amount of opportunities for us. For instance, we are evaluating potentially using this in pediatric care for things like stress management, distress, compliance with the procedures that the child is going through that are not that pleasant in a hospital, for instance, blood work, MRI scans and stuff like that. Potentially schooling system, especially now given the lockdown in COVID, we are seeing 20 to 30% increase in stress and anxiety amongst school kids. And then you can obviously use your imagination and go and say, well, who else needs companionship? Who else is suffering from social isolation and so on? And I think you will see the dots connecting to places where people literally do not have the opportunity to have interaction with humans right now, and they need help, and it is having a very negative mental impact on them. So both in terms of the direction of technology, you will see it becoming more and more advanced, and interaction with humans using body language, head nodding, facial expression, so it's a super complex thing. So we have just scratched the surface, but the technology is there. We need more resources and capital to keep moving it to a point where it becomes even more sophisticated and becomes a better tool.
Yeah. One of the things that many people might not know is that, pre-COVID, 90% of teachers K through 12 wanted a SEL curriculum in the United States. And said it was something that they needed. But in an era of, continued budget cuts and, a bunch of other things like that, it just wasn't, it just wasn't happening. And a lot of times when I would talk about the importance of this as it relates to the framework that you've heard me describe, people would say, well, we don't have enough money for the world to, for every child to have a Montessori teacher. And so what I love about what you've done, and then Dmitry, I'm going to ask you a question after this, is sort of, it's saying, well, actually we can leverage technology to support parents and teachers in a way that, is tied to gold standard understanding of SEL, but then gives them a little bit of a backup. And then as, the inevitable costs go down over time, then it actually becomes more and more accessible. So Dmitry, one of the conversations that I remember with you is that we were talking about the form factors of robots. And, and you really opened my mind, because before I talked to you, like many, when I thought of robots, I thought of industrial robots, and I thought of, sort of like the traditional things that you might have seen. But you said something that I'd love for you to expand onto, is you said that a robot is anything that helps us do what it is we want to do. You said something soft and furry could be a robot. You just had this broad definition that's sort of perception shifting. So I'm wondering if you might describe for people, what you think a robot is, and in this area of psychological development for humans, like what is possible and what should we be thinking about with robotics?
Yeah, but then Nicole, just to maybe add what Paolo said before, I think that especially because of the COVID, all the problems we discuss, it's become really, really important. And look, one of my interesting observation is I know that during the COVID, some parents try to find some friends or hire some Zoom nanny, somebody who can just sit with their kids online and talk, right, and have some kind of social interaction. So it just shows how important it is, and how huge issue for just found the way for kids to interact with some other people, and found this kind of social impressions. And I think this is definitely showing how important work of what's Paolo doing, and definitely like huge opportunity. And I do not think that it's only about like children. It's definitely opportunity for everybody, right? And for adults as well. So coming back to your question, is you're absolutely right. First of all, of course, I can say for last 20 years, a lot of people are discussing is what's robot mean, like where it can go, like how far you can think about robotics. And I think that, of course, if you look on like for robots about like kids, I feel it should be something which is like very comfortable, something which is very, very familiar, and make some kind of huge level of comfort. And I think that what Paolo is doing is absolutely right for factor, and the way it's really cute stuff. You want to hug it, you want to play with it, you have feeling like really just when you see it in the device, you have like emotional attachment to it. It's so cool, and I think that it's perfect form factor. One other observation is that I see how quick children adapt new technology. Like for example, for my kids, I have like two kids, 4 and 6 years old. They grow up always having Roomba in their house, right? So for them, having a robot at home, it's something very natural. They give some name for our robot, Roomba, and I feel how they play, interact with that. So, and Roomba is pretty simple robot comparing to what's Moxie can do. So I'm really excited to see like what will be next level of interaction between kids and robots.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the robots that you even beyond Moxie, what are some of the robots that you would like to see that just can help humans grow and develop?
I think that it's definitely like I can say that anything related to elderly care, like it's especially right now in the COVID, you see what's going on with like older generation is the most valuable for COVID situation. So definitely having something which can help them in very natural and how to say effective way. It's definitely something I wish to see, and I think that like especially right now we try to bring a lot of medicine into the home. So try to make things working remote, and of course you now can visit the doctor remote, you can speak to the doctor, but you still, there's a lot of procedures you cannot do remote, right? So I'm like, if you give me like ability to dream, having some kind of robots who can help you do a lot of medical procedures remotely, I think it will be really, really cool to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, Paolo, a question for you. One of the things that I think many people are sort of concerned about is privacy and security, especially with emotionally aware products. I remember you really being impressed. Like if parents lose the password, then the robot gets wiped because you guys actually don't take the data yourself. Everything is stored locally. Can you talk a little bit about how you thought about that and also how you designed around it? Because, all of the people in the audience, the people in our community, they're all building things where the data is actually quite precious because it's so personal. And I think it can be, I think it can be very helpful for them to hear how you thought about it and to get it right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is a significant investment, but it's an important one for a product like this that's in your home, has a bunch of sensors and capability of machine learning, AI, computer vision, and so on. So we took many steps, starting from the hardware design. For instance, one of the things we decided is that what if the robot gets hacked in spite of our intent to secure the software and so on? So we made it close to impossible unless you have physical access to the hardware to access the camera images to begin with, right? Secondly, on the security side of things, there's a lot of computation that has happening in the cloud. There's data connection to your parent app, which goes through the cloud and so on. So every piece of data is encrypted, and anything that is personally identifiable information about the child is encrypted with the encryption code that only the parent has access to, meaning that if they lose that encryption, that data is going to be lost. We don't even have access to this. And then even a couple of steps before that, it's a child's product, so we got to be very careful. So we have, this is COPPA certified safe harbor, which means that it requires parent consent. When you set up the robot through the parent app, we have to go through certain procedures through a partnership with a company called Privo that can allow them to certify that this is done under the consent of a legitimate care provider, or guardian, or parent to the child, using ID, pictures of ID, credit information, and so on. So those are the steps we have taken to secure everything and provide the privacy and peace of mind that the data is secure and no private information is accessed by us. We do have generic information, aggregated information, like there are to measure and understand how different cohorts of children are performing or responding to the robot, so we can keep optimizing our product, basically. But that's an anonymous data.
Mm-hmm. And then since you've been out, and also doing a lot of tests, what has surprised you? Like what has happened with the product that you did not expect?
I think a number of things. So at very early on, when I was starting the company, I did have this worry about the paradox of saying that we want to make your child have better social skills and soft skills using a robot. That's a bit of an oxymoron, right? It could be viewed as such. So I was worried that the professional community, the therapy community, and even the parents may sort of fight against that. And I've not seen that at all. And the other part is the magic that we see when you put Moxie in front of a child. And especially if you have a child with neurodevelopmental difficulties, we have seen that a child opens up to Moxie in ways they do not do to even their own therapist. So that is the magic, by the way. Because Moxie provides this safe, non-judgmental environment to let a child express themselves and explore in ways that they do not feel comfortable doing with other people. And then the reaction of parents that literally get tear in their eyes saying that we did not know our child has these abilities. So those are the magical moments, and that's why we do what we do, because I can guarantee you, and I think Dmitry can attest to this, robotics is not easy. I think Moxie is maybe an order of magnitude even harder than robotics, because the hardware is actually the easy part. It's all of the social emotional techniques we are incorporating into content that's fun and engaging with machine learning algorithms that allow you for smooth interactions. As a matter of fact, we could ask Dmitry. Dmitry has a super impressive background at a very young age. He basically created Google of Russia, and then he moved on to robotics, and I wonder why.
So I think it's like, it was always my passion. I really believe that robotics is technology of 21st century. And especially now in 2020, it's, I think, become absolutely obvious for all of us, right? It's just so exciting. And, you know, like, maybe just to add to what Paolo said, I'm personally, the biggest thing I'm excited about this kind of robots is storytelling. I think storytelling is just, I think I said at the beginning of our talk, that this kind of memories these robots can create together, like way how they can teach through storytelling, I think it's amazing. It's definitely seeing how kids literally like open their world through stories. Like they today saw some kind of cartoons, and tomorrow they already try to repeat how some kind of characters from this cartoon. So I definitely feel that the ability of these robots to create story and be storytellers, this is the most amazing stuff for me.
And by the way, Nicole, to your question about surprises, actually, I'll refer to maybe quote. We have therapists, child development experts on our staff, obviously. And we did a beta program in the summer for 1 month, where children roughly interact with a robot on average about 15, 20 minutes. That's what we want them to do. We don't want them to become addicted to the product.
That's a great point. Be sure to please talk about how the kids can only, they have limited amount of time, so they can't binge.
Right. So before that, so just referring to our head therapists on our team, within a month, by the way, we do assessments, right? Using the best evidence-based techniques from the child development profession, pre-assessment and post-assessment, and she was blown away that within a month, how much these children had improved in all of the areas that we are looking at, like ability to express themselves, ability to manage their emotions, behavior, kindness, and all that, right? So that warms everyone in the company that has been working hard and relentlessly on this product. And yes, so we don't want children to binge. I mean, as we said, this is a tool. It should not be the destination. It's the springboard. So we are designing and limiting the usage, and the parent has actually control over this through the parent app to set limitation for how long they can spend with this. And in some cases, the parent can allow a child, maybe the child needs some more help and so on. We have had scenarios where a child literally spent 4 hours talking to Moxie, which speaks to a couple of things, right? One is that the needs the child has for expressing themselves, but also the robot's ability to be able to maintain a coherent conversation for that long is way beyond the state of the art. So those are the challenges we have had to overcome.
Wow. Well, as we finish up, two important points that I want everyone to also know about is that, people who are working with veterans were discovering the same thing, that veterans, so adult, men and women, were not disclosing that they had PTSD symptoms to a person. There was something about being able to disclose it to a chatbot that allowed them to bring it up. And so, it's like this I think it's wonderful to use these things that allow us multiple entry points. And then the last thing that I'll say, tied to your point, Dmitry, which is wonderful, is that, I believe that storytelling is how we come to know who we are. And it's how, it's actually how humanity is, navigates to what we are going to be. Like, it isn't a coincidence that the first small mobile phones look like the communicator on Star Trek. It's like these stories are essential to, having people look up, for humanity to look up to what we might be. And so making it so that technology can help us in crafting our own personal stories and our stories collectively, it's really how we solve the core problem.